Hey everyone, before you dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss a second of this. My name is Jonathan Rayner, and what I'm about to tell you is the most terrifying thing that has ever happened to me. Something I never thought I'd survive to see daylight again. It started last Friday night when I drove out from Las Vegas. My old Jeep loaded with cameras, night vision gear, and a notebook full of questions I wanted answered about Area 51. I had been chasing rumors, whispers of blacked-out experiments, and unidentified flying objects for years. But this time I was determined to get closer than anyone else. The desert was dark, emptier than I imagined, and the silence felt unnatural, almost like the land itself was holding its breath. I parked near an old, abandoned dirt road that supposedly led to a hidden checkpoint, and I remember thinking how quiet it was, too quiet, as if the night itself was watching me. My first sign that something was wrong wasn't in the sky. It was in the way the temperature dropped abruptly, a chill that sank into my bones like icy fingers. My camera batteries started dying in minutes, not hours, and the compass on my phone spun wildly like it had lost all sense of direction. Then I saw it. A pale, almost metallic light hovering above the distant ridges. At first, I thought it was a reflection, some trick of the moonlight, but it moved too deliberately, too fast, cutting across the desert like it was slicing the very air. I grabbed my binoculars, hands shaking, and watched as it descended toward the dry wash where I had parked. My rational mind screamed that this was impossible, that it had to be a helicopter or some secret military drone. But the way it moved, smooth, silent, utterly unnatural, made me feel like every rational explanation was evaporating. And then the humming started, a deep, resonant vibration that seemed to come from under my feet, not the sky, like the earth itself was thrumming in anticipation. My Jeep shook slightly as I fumbled to start it, trying to drive away, but before I could move more than a few feet, the light split into three distinct shapes, surrounding my vehicle, and I realized with a sinking, panic certainty that I was being tracked. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but the Jeep refused to start, as if some invisible force was holding it in place. The lights were closer now, and I could make out an almost liquid, shimmering surface, reflecting the desert around it in ways that made my head spin. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the lights vanished, and a ringing filled my ears, high-pitched and insistent, like an alarm designed to target the very nerves in your skull. I blacked out. When I came to, I wasn't in my Jeep anymore. I was lying on a smooth, metallic floor in a space that defied any logical description. Walls that curved impossibly, glowing softly with colors that had no names, and a ceiling that seemed to shift, breathing like a living organism. I tried to stand, but my legs felt weak, almost weightless, and I realized I wasn't alone. Shadows moved in the corners of my vision, shapes that were not human, yet watched me with an intensity that froze every thought. The air smelled faintly of ozone and something else I couldn't name, a scent that triggered panic in the deepest part of my mind. Then I saw it, the first figure. Elongated, pale, with eyes that were larger than any human's, black and endless, and they were studying me like I was a specimen in a laboratory. My voice caught in my throat, and all I could do was stare as it moved closer, gliding without a sound, its presence pressing against me like water against a submerged diver. I don't know how long I was there, minutes or hours, time stretched and folded in ways I couldn't comprehend, but every moment felt like a test, a probe into my very consciousness. And then, as abruptly as it had started, I was back in the desert, alone, Jeep intact, the engines finally responding, but the lights in the sky nowhere to be seen. I drove in a daze, not caring about directions, only the compulsion to escape, and when I finally reached the outskirts of town, I realized something horrifying. My watch, my phone, even my notebook, all devices that should have recorded evidence, were blank, wiped clean, as if the night had never existed. But the memory, the fear, the cold that still lingered in my bones, those were real. And I knew, deep down, that it wasn't over. Something had followed me, something patient, watching, waiting for the next opportunity. The desert was never empty, not really, and whatever it had found me first. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound, the hum of a passing car, the whisper of the wind against my window, felt like a signal. My mind replayed the impossible shapes, the alien figures over and over. I tried to rationalize it. A hallucination, exhaustion, desert fever. But when I checked my reflection in the bathroom mirror, I noticed something strange. A faint, geometric pattern on the back of my hand, almost like a tattoo, but glowing softly, impossible to wash off. I had no memory of how it got there, and my pulse raced as I realized it matched the curvature of the strange symbols I'd glimpsed on the walls inside that ship. I grabbed my gear again, trying to collect evidence to make sense of it all. I knew the authorities would laugh at me. They'd call it delusion. I didn't care anymore. I had to go back. The next morning, I rented a stronger vehicle, packed extra supplies, and drove deeper into the Nevada desert, closer to the perimeter of Area 51. My heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination. The closer I got to Groom Lake, the more I felt it. The same hum from the night before, faint, distant, but unmistakable. It was a warning, a signal that they knew I was coming. I tried to stay calm, kept my cameras rolling, documenting every barren rock, every shifting shadow. Hours passed, and then I saw the first anomaly. A series of lights hovering silently above the ground, moving in a pattern that no drone or aircraft could replicate. They were studying me, circling like predators, but never approaching directly. My rational mind screamed at me to turn back, but something inside refused. By late afternoon, I had reached a ridge that overlooked a restricted zone. The barbed wire, the no trespassing signs, the warning towers, they all felt like part of a facade, as if the real activity was happening above, beyond, somewhere I couldn't see yet. I set up a camera on a tripod, hoping to capture something, anything that would explain what I had experienced. And then it happened. The sky split with light, a vertical beam that seemed to slice through the clouds, illuminating the desert in a surreal glow. My camera battery died instantly, but my eyes couldn't look away. Shapes emerged from the beam, moving with impossible speed and precision, and I knew with a shiver that they weren't of this world. I turned to run, but before I could take more than a step, the ground beneath me rippled, almost liquid, and a force pushed me to the earth. I screamed, clawing at the sand, but my body didn't respond normally. I felt weightless, suspended, and then everything went black again. When I woke, I was inside a craft far larger than the first one, walls stretching in directions I couldn't measure. The figures from before were there, but more numerous, moving with a coordinated elegance that was terrifying to witness. They didn't speak, but somehow, through a sense that wasn't sound, I understood their purpose. Observation. Experimentation. They were cataloging everything about me. My biology, my mind, my fear. I struggled, screamed, but they ignored my panic. And then one of them extended a thin appendage, touching the geometric mark on my hand. A jolt shot through me, and visions flooded my mind. Endless deserts, alien landscapes, strange machines, and humans in positions I didn't understand. Subjects, not participants. I realized with horror that I was seeing both past and future, glimpses of encounters that may have happened to others before me. My consciousness expanded, stretched beyond my body, and I understood for the first time how small and fragile I truly was. Hours or maybe days passed. I lost all sense of time. The beings communicated through images, patterns, emotions, implanting fragments of knowledge and fear. When they finally returned me to the desert, I was no longer just a man. I was something altered, a carrier of information, marked forever. The Jeep was waiting exactly where I had left it. Everything else looked normal. The desert, the horizon, the silence, but I wasn't the same. I could feel them in the distance, tracking, waiting. And now, every night, the hum returns, faint but insistent, a reminder that I am no longer alone, that the desert has eyes, and they are patient. For the first week after the second encounter, I tried to pretend life was normal. I went back to my small apartment in Las Vegas, shut the blinds, and ignored the world. But it didn't ignore me. Every night, at exactly 3:13 a.m., a low-frequency hum would begin somewhere beyond the city, faint but distinct, like a heartbeat hidden beneath the noise of the streets. It wasn't in my head. My neighbors couldn't hear it, but my pets did. The cat I'd had for years hissed at empty corners and refused to come near me. The geometric mark on my hand had spread too. Faintly glowing lines now ran up my forearm, tracing paths like circuitry beneath my skin. They didn't hurt, but they pulsed sometimes in rhythm with the hum, and I knew they weren't natural. I started keeping a journal, recording everything I experienced. I posted anonymous videos online, trying to get the attention of other experiencers, people who might understand. Most comments were trolls, calling me crazy, but a few messages stood out, coded, cryptic replies from users who claimed to be ex-military or ex-contractors stationed at Groom Lake. They told me to stop. They told me to disappear before it was too late. One even sent me coordinates in the desert, a location near an old test range that had supposedly been abandoned decades ago. Against every instinct, I went. The drive was tense, the air heavier than usual. The desert at dusk was a living thing, breathing heat and light into the darkness. I parked where the coordinates led me. A cracked asphalt pad in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by rusting fences and shredded warning signs. No one else was there. I set up my camera, scanning the horizon. Hours passed. Nothing. And then, as the last light of the sun dipped below the hills, I heard the hum again. Stronger this time, vibrating through my ribs. I turned slowly and saw it. A ship, different from before, wedge-shaped, like a triangle cut from the sky itself, blacker than the night but edged in faint blue light. It didn't hover above me like last time. It circled, slow and deliberate, and I realized with dread that it was hurting me, pushing me toward the cracked pad. I tried to back away, but my legs felt heavy, unresponsive. The mark on my arm flared with light, and a sharp pain shot up to my shoulder. Panic rose in my throat, but I couldn't move. The ship dropped lower, silent, and then a beam of pale light shot down, enveloping me. My body lifted off the ground. My screams echoed but were swallowed by the desert. I was back inside, but not the same craft as before. This one felt older, colder. The walls were darker, matte, and the shapes around me less fluid, more rigid, machines maybe, or some kind of apparatus. The beings were different too, taller, with long, angular limbs and narrow heads that tilted unnaturally as they examined me. I felt them in my head again, but this time it wasn't observation. It was activation. They were triggering something inside me, something they had planted. I felt memories that weren't mine flash across my vision. Maps of stars, sequences of numbers, blueprints of structures buried under sand. They were downloading me, filling me, as if I were a vessel. I fought it, tried to shut it out, but the harder I resisted, the more the mark burned. The pain became unbearable. I blacked out. When I came to, I was lying on the asphalt pad, the night sky silent and empty again. My camera was gone. My phone was fried, its screen dead. But the coordinates on the paper I'd written them on had changed. Now they formed a new set of numbers, a different location, deeper into the restricted zone, almost touching the heart of Area 51. I drove home in silence, my mind a storm of fear and questions. It wasn't random anymore. They were leading me somewhere, guiding me step by step. My body felt alien, charged, like I was carrying something inside me that didn't belong. And as I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, I realized the most terrifying truth of all. I wasn't just being hunted anymore. I was being used. I didn't hesitate. I followed the coordinates the next night, driving deeper into the desert than I ever had, past warning signs, past checkpoints that seemed abandoned but somehow alive with hidden cameras, past sand-swept bunkers that whispered of decades of secrets. The Jeep's engine rattled like it knew what lay ahead. But I didn't care. The hum was stronger now, a physical pressure against my chest, guiding me like a compass I didn't understand. Finally, I arrived at a valley hidden behind jagged cliffs, a place that didn't exist on any map. There, a massive structure emerged from the darkness, angular and black, unlike anything human-made, hovering slightly above the ground, pulsing with that same pale blue light. I stepped closer, heart hammering, and the ground beneath me rippled, signaling my arrival. The marks on my arms flared, burning, and I understood that whatever they had implanted in me was activating now, connecting me to the ship in a way that felt both terrifying and inevitable. The beings emerged, more numerous than ever, their shapes blending organic and mechanical, eyes locked on me with piercing intent. And then it happened. The floor beneath me dissolved into light, pulling me upward into the craft's vast interior where walls curved impossibly, glowing with colors that shouldn't exist, and the air thrummed with intelligence, alive and watchful. I was no longer just a human. I was a conduit, my mind linked to a consciousness beyond comprehension, seeing time and space layered on top of itself, glimpsing other abductees, other worlds, other experiments. They didn't speak, but I understood. I was chosen to carry their knowledge back to humanity, or at least part of it. A warning encoded in visions and geometric patterns burned into my flesh. And as the ship rose silently into the night sky, the desert shrinking beneath me, I realized the truth I could never unsee. They had hunted me, not to harm me, but to prepare me, to mark me, to change the course of everything I thought I knew about reality. I screamed, not from fear, but from the overwhelming awareness of my insignificance and my role in something far larger, far older, far beyond the reach of any human mind. And as the hum enveloped me completely, the ship vanished into the stars, leaving behind nothing but the desert, the wind, and the undeniable certainty that once they had chosen you, there was no turning back.